Have you guys done many BIML talks here? Couple?
None big.
Not here? Oh, okay. Cool. Well, you got Andy coming. That'll be good. My name is Reeves. I work for Lynchpin. I'm an independent consultant. I'm out of Denver, Colorado. I've been doing SQL Server for a while. I'm actually a certified master. If anyone knows what that is, most people don't know what that is. There's a couple of us running around. That group has gone away, so there's no more joining at this point. But that's what I've been doing. There's all my contact information. Macer Consulting is the company that's me as an independent, and I work with Lynchpin. We're grouped up, however you want to say that. So that's all my information to get hold of me. Not too much more exciting than that, and I can pass off this slide deck and however, so you don't have to write anything down if you want. Okay, but before we do that, I want to figure out who we're talking to. So, technical versus business. Who would consider themselves business and non-technical? Okay, so that's
I'm talking about
okay.
BI analyst.
Okay. Okay. Does everyone know what, did I switch past what we were doing today? Did we, master data services? Is that what it's not algebra? We're not doing algebra, trigonometry today. That's for another day. But we're doing master data services. So I forgot we blew past and went to Andy's deal for next week. But so this week's master data services, that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to try to show you, talk about kind of what it is as a technology, how Microsoft, from their Microsoft perspective, has done it with master data services. You hear me use the term, master data management, which is the philosophy of it, and then you'll hear the term master data services, which is Microsoft's implementation of that. Okay? So now I go back to who we are, all that kind of stuff. The next one would be, has anybody ever managed reference data? And this is where everyone's hand would probably go up. Because has anybody managed Excel? You had an Excel workbook that you're managing, you had some data on there that you need to manage, so you manage some reference data, right? And a lot of times we manage that in Excel. Has anybody managed anything on SharePoint lists? So you moved up, you're like, hey, look at me, I put this on SharePoint list, multiple people can get to it, it's not that Excel file sitting on my machine. Like, hey, this is kind of a good idea. This kind of goes along the idea of managing reference data and how we do it. We're moving it to a more controlled solution, right? Has anybody worked with master data services? No, so no lying today. Keep me honest, you know what the deal is. But that's what we're going to talk about. And master data services is Microsoft's implementation of master data management. Okay? Does anybody know what the code name for MDS is? Good man. There's always one.
I think they were bought a company in Alpharetta, Georgia. So.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely talk about strategy. Yeah. Okay. So this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to kind of do an introduction for what master data management is. Kind of talk about some terminology that we use, and you'll kind of hear. We'll talk through some usage scenarios and some architecture stuff. I'm going to then give a quick little, what is master data services, where it came from, the strategy or acquisition, and all that kind of stuff, and how it goes into it. But the majority of it is I'm just going to try to kick the tires on MDS and kind of show you kind of some of the stuff that you can do with that. Does that make sense? Does that sound like a little better than trigonometry? I'm thinking so. So master data management is this idea, right? It's this idea that kind of revolves around data governance, and it revolves around trying to get a good idea of the assets within your enterprise, right? And has anybody, I like concrete examples, right? Has anybody ever got one of these in the mail? Something like this, a flyer? Did you get another one? Did you get another one? And you ever wonder why you got 3? Oops. Exactly. So does master data management have a relevancy in everybody's job? Because this doesn't cost anything, right? These come for free, right? Because you know you got one going to Amy Gunning Smith, my wife. You got one going to Amy Smith, my wife. You got one going to Reeves Smith, right? And this is the problem that you're trying to manage with master data services, right? You're trying to say that we have these things in the business that we consider, that we should consider as assets, which is our data. And it's not our transactional data, right? It's our It's our, what people say is nouns or entities within the business that we need to manage. And sometimes we manage it well and sometimes we don't. And that has a cost. And this is the whole premise around doing that. You know, there is this data governance idea around master data management that helps us try to manage that data. Tonight we're going to talk more around, I have data quality highlighted. That's not as much from an integration services and moving data around. That's kind of where that plays into. But we're really going to talk about reference data and master data management. And this comes from the Data Management Association, their idea of what data governance is from that standpoint. Okay? Does that sound easy enough, doable? Yes? Okay. So what is master data management? I want to say it's more policies, process. It's not a tools problem. There are tools within it, but it's more of a governance problem. It's more of processes around that governance and what you're going to do, right? Which system is right? When Reeves Smith shows up in two systems, when he shows up in accounting and he shows up in shipping, and he has a birth date that is not the same across those two systems, which system wins? That's not really a technical problem, that's a decision problem, right? So that's where I say it's a process problem. You can all say we're all technologists. At least, yes, everyone's technologists, right? So we can say that could be a technology problem, but more it's a governance problem, right? It's a which system are we going to believe? And because in that example, you could say we could figure out which one it is, but most of the time we have to do things with broad brushes, right? We can't do things where we ask each individual one. We're going to say, which system do we normally believe is better? You know, do we believe accounting's probably going to be a little better, or do we believe shipping, or you know, that kind of stuff? Maybe address we would believe shipping. And these are the kind of things where you have to get a governance around that and try to figure out and get policies, and through a set of tools you can help with those policies. Okay? Again, it's methodology. And so what is master data? And that's where I was saying it's more, people say nouns too. You hear the word nouns. So it's like your parts, your customers, that kind of stuff. It's not your transactions. So you're not looking at, you know, managing your transactions within master data. You're interested in managing the assets of your business, right? Okay, and two good examples of that are customer and product. And you'll hear those systems. You'll hear about customer and product, and they're specific, I think, PIMs, so product information management. You'll hear acronyms around management of those. Master data services, the Microsoft implementation isn't around a product or around a customer. It's around any type of master data that you can manage. So it's not a domain-specific technology. Okay? Where does master data reside? Finance systems, accounting systems, anywhere else? What's the one we're missing on here?
John.
Well, I'm thinking it more abstract. Where does everybody's master data services reside?
Excel.
There you go. You know what we're talking about, right? John left, he went on vacation, and it's like that one report is due this week. But hold on, where do we get those numbers from last time? That's on John's report. Those things that we get, you know, John has some data that we mash together, it's on his, because we're managing in Excel, right? Because we all do that, or nobody does it, right? Because Excel analytics doesn't exist, right? Everyone runs their businesses with databases. We don't run our business with Excel, but sometimes we see that happen. I've seen it happen once, twice, a lot. So, but before we move on and keep talking, let's talk about some of the terms that you'll hear. You hear reference data. I use that term to be data that classifies data, right? So a lot of times you'll see reports, and sometimes you'll see a report and it talks about Colorado, and it'll say CO, and it'll say COL, and stuff like that. And you look at that report and it's like, hey, that's not right? Because I want it to be categorized correctly, but I can't necessarily sometimes go back into my source systems and change that. So I might manage the source system and what that means from that source system and categorize that stuff and make it more, you know, usable for reports. So sometimes we're able to affect our upstream systems and sometimes we're not, right? And we'll talk about some architectures and what that kind of means. Data steward, do we hear that term? That's been pretty popular, right? Does he know more about the data? He or she know more about the data than the tech people? I would say yes. They're going to know what the data means. right? We might know how many rows and what it affects and that kind of stuff. But they're going to be the ones that can answer, what is code 5 that shows up every 2 months? They're going to know, well, it's probably, this, and this. They're going to understand the data. And that's why master data services is a good mix. It's enough of a technology, but it's where we can pass back some of that control to the business so the business can maintain that data and we don't have to get as much involved. But we can track what they're doing to help them, but enable them because they know the data better than we do. Okay? You hear the term golden record too, which is just kind of this concept of you have multiple systems, right? Again, I can be in the accounting system, I can be in the shipping system, I can be in the marketing system, and having all that information could be considered very good, right? There could be some information in the marketing system that I don't have in the accounting system, so it could make a complete record for me across the enterprise and let, maybe you understand, some things in some systems that wouldn't be available in others, but could that be beneficial to the business as a whole? So that's kind of this idea of this golden record, right? And then you've got these terms, system of entry and system of reference. The bad part is I've seen IBM say SOE or SO. I've seen a reference where they say system of record. You'll hear that too. That gets confusing, reference and record. But the terms I'm going to use, system of entry and system of record. System of entry is going to be where that data resides and where it goes in. A system of reference means I'm a system that would reference that system. So that system is now upstream to some other system. Sometimes you'll have a system of entry and a system of record being the same system, right? Sometimes you'll have a system of entry that then pushes stuff into a system of record, like a data warehouse would be a system of record, but it's not the system of entry. Like if we figure out that there's something wrong in our data warehouse, sometimes we don't have the ability to go back. Or we have the ability in our data warehouse to possibly change it, but the next time we run, we might pull that data back, right? Sometimes we have the ability to change it in the data warehouse, and that's reflected back depending on how things are set up. But most of the time, in a data warehouse scenario, we pull that data and any modifications need to happen in the system of entry. Okay? Architecture is the boring stuff that you probably can't see. Let's try this just to set the mood. Is that too moody now? So these are just different kinds of architectures that you can put together, and it's not that big of a deal. You have this idea of a registry. So I can set up an MDM type solution where basically all I'm doing is keeping keys that match all the relationships. So I'm keeping the keys of what I look like in this system, in this system, in this system, so I can see a whole picture. Super easy to implement, right? You're just bringing in keys and matching those keys together. It's probably an easier type of implementation. And do understand, this implementation, you can do all these together. You can do all these types of implementation on one overall system, right? It doesn't mean that I have to do this implementation and I can't do this, this, and this. There could be ones that I just keep keys for one system. I'm doing a consolidation where the consolidation is more of the idea of your data warehouse, right? You've got your systems, you all feed into one system, and then you report on or do reporting there. So that's your data warehouse system. You can kind of consider a consolidated system. But if I had a system that I only kept keys from because I only cared about some things to be able to look at it to compare across my other systems, that could be a registry and a consolidation. You also have, notice the arrows are all, I'm pushing nothing back, right? And this one, consolidation gets a little harder. And as you can see, they go across the board on as they get harder. Centralize is where I'm going to start putting all my information within here. So I put my customer in here and he would get fed back to my other systems. That gets a little bit harder to implement because most of your upstream, downstream, whichever way you want to look at it from that diagram systems like your SAPs and stuff like that, implementing a process to be able to put those customers into SAP, that can be interesting and exciting, right? That's one way to do it. And then there's this coexistence idea where basically you allow all the systems to talk to your the master data management, and those systems can feed and push information back and forth. That's probably the most difficult to implement, but is one type of architecture. Questions?
Is coexistent registry type with both way traffic, or is it something different?
No, it's just one way. The registry is just one way. The data flow in all these is one way except for this guy right here.
So if you make like registry a two-way, does that become a coexistence?
Well, I mean, if I made a registry and coexistence, I don't know if they would be able to coexist. Am I allowed to say that? Because a registry is just tracking the keys from the system. And all a registry really is doing is tracking the relationships between the systems. So I don't know if could I push that information back if I had it? Like, how would I ever know about the key here to be able to push something to this system? I don't think that would, you see what I mean? Because these keys would be maintained at this system and there'd be no reason to push them back. But now in a different scenario where a customer does update their name, so let's say, you know, my wife updates her name from her maiden name to her married name, and you're in this system, you updated this system, and this system made these aware of that change, right? Whereas in this scenario, they would have put that information into here and it would have updated it, okay? How would we have done it here? In this scenario, you'd update it here, you'd update it here, you'd update it here, right? Not as same kind of idea with there, okay? Some of it's going to be set around what kind of access you have to those other systems. And that's why a lot of times, do I have the arrow? A lot of times you're going to be with a consolidation, right? You're going to be sucking all that data down and you might do some manipulation down here, but you're not going to be pushing that stuff back. And that's where this starts getting, that's why I say hard. These are hard because now you've got to make a system that's able to update these other source systems. And that can be exciting or hard, however you want to look at it. Okay? Any other questions? Here's some of the usage scenarios. So we talked about architecture. There's basically two different usage scenarios. I break down analytical into reference information and analytical, but you have analytical and operational, right? And what we mean by that is analytical being your data warehouse type scenarios, and then operational being your transactional type systems. And we can manage some of our transactional entities within a master data services to push that back, right? But there's those two that are those two main ones. And I basically say you can also do reference management because I look at master data services as a really good place to, a scenario where you can get in and start managing some of that reference data so that Joe, when he goes on vacation, you know, you're not looking for that Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to show in the demo how you can just move some Excel stuff into MDS pretty easily. And it's a great place to start. MDS is an enterprise CAL though. Does that make sense? So if you're running, I think it's BI too. Now that I said that, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it's with BI also. That I'm not sure. I know it's an enterprise CAL. Because what that means is if I'm buying SQL Server, I have to buy enterprise to be able to run this. Okay? Questions? And this is kind of what maybe an analytical diagram would look like if we ran it in our enterprise, right? So here's the question. If anyone's paying attention? Anybody paying attention? What is this one? Why is it not going through MDS? What would that be? What data wouldn't we care about going through MDS?
Transaction.
There you go. Exactly. So yeah, so you've got, and that's kind of why I did that. So you've got a path that doesn't have to go through MDS. You're going to have stuff that does go through MDS, and you're going to have stuff that you don't need to go through MDS, right? And that's where, you know, you're going to manage the entities, the customers, the products, that kind of stuff. You're not going to manage through master data services your information that is transactional in nature. Okay? And then you can push it out to data warehouse. You can push it out to a cube. You can look at a SharePoint and all that kind of stuff. Okay? And then as you can see, the data steward, you can interact. It doesn't have to be a data steward. It could be you too. Can interact with master data services via Excel or Internet Explorer. Okay? So what are some of the business problems that you see, and how could master data services help you out with those business problems? Does your enterprise have multiple systems that manage the same entity? Well, I guess these are one system that's managing. Do you have differences between those systems, right? Have you ever pulled numbers and then Joe again comes back from vacation, comes back and pulls numbers, and those numbers are different because Joe pulled it differently than you did, right? Or Joe's pulling it from a different system. So, you know, are you, as we report and as we have this data that we make business decisions on, does it bring the correct picture? I mean, are we classifying things correctly? How many things do we have that we sell or that we buy that are non-classified, right? Because this customer, I don't know where this customer is, or, you know, he put in XX for a state and I don't know what that one is, right? But those data, that money goes away. So when somebody pulls a report, what's a report for, you know, South Carolina, and XX is not going to come back, right? So those numbers can be different. So sometimes, you know, and that might not be something we can affect in the source system. Sometimes we can if we find that information, but we can start to clean that up, and through master data services, this idea of data governance, we can try to make that a little bit better, right? And the big one is, wouldn't you like to give the business access to this data so that you don't have to worry about it, right? Because it's no fun when business comes back and says, hey, this thing XX needs to be changed to SC, right? I like writing SQL too, because sometimes that might not be the funnest part. It'd be really nice to be able to just give them the keys to the kingdom and let them be able to do that, right? Okay? Here's the history. So Master Data Services, it was a product that was acquired by Microsoft from a company named Stratager. They're around here close, I thought. Might be in Atlanta-ish, I thought they were. But they incorporated in 2001, they created a product called Plus EDM, which is Enterprise Data Manager, I think it was called. Microsoft acquired them in 2007, and the first version rolled out in 2008 R2. Did anyone use 2008 R2? For the people that used MDS? You used 2008 R2? Okay. And the second release came out in 2012, and it added an Excel integration piece, which is really nice. The reason I asked for 2008 versus 2012 is 2012, I think, is a lot better. The website in 2008 had some issues. So if you're going to implement Master Data Services and you're still a 2008 shop, I would recommend running 2012 web interface, and that web interface can interact back with the 2008 R2 database. Because the interface is a nice piece, it allows Excel integration, and it allows a little bit better website experience. Okay? Wow, that's kind of hard to see. That's really hard to see.
Look good on your computer.
That's it, exactly, it does. Well, let's pretend, if we can all imagine for a second, that is the feature selection for installing SQL Server. Okay, it does, we can read that at least, right? That's the feature selection. And the trick here is you're looking down here, and have you seen where to install MDS? For 2008 R2. If you're installing it, it doesn't show up on the feature selection. It is a directory that you have to go into and install separately. So if you were doing 2008 R2 and you wanted to install it, it's not, you don't start up the SQL Server install and do a checkbox. You have to come into the directory on the disk and do that install, okay? But again, in this day and age, I would definitely install 12 or 14. There is basically difference between 12 and 14. 14 was a relational feature. How do I say that? What relational items were addressed in 2014, and not really anything around MDS and the BI stuff. So, but if you're doing it in 12, it is now, if you install 12 and you go through the feature selection, it is basically there. Wow, that's really bad. You're gonna have to take my word for that. So that was all there is for that one. So if you are doing it in 12, it's in the install, it's in the feature selection in the SQL Server install. If you're not doing it in 12, it is a directory you have to go through and kick it off. I would suggest doing 12 though. What are some of the new features? Enhancement to Data Manager, Silverlight web interface. It has a better user experience, right? Yeah, the web interface was pretty bad in 2008. There was like a record, would only show a couple records. It was pretty bad. The experience is a lot better in 2012. And then the big key would be the Excel add-in. So how many people, everything doable in Excel just like wins everything, right? You go to the business and say, I need you to start managing master data. We got this thing coming on. Can you manage it in Excel? And that's almost like, you get the smile, right? You don't have to work very hard. There's an add-in, and it just makes life really easy. For the technical people that care, there's entity-based staging. So that's a fancy pants word that means it used to be, in 2008, R2, you staged everything through two common tables, a reference table and a something else table. I can't remember. Everything went into those common tables, right? And you'd tell it what it is, and you couldn't type things and stuff like that. In 2012, they made separate tables for each of your entities that you can now load, right? And you sit there and you go, well, how's that such a big deal? Well, there's a little bit better performance if I can type the stuff coming in. But the biggest deal was security. From an entity-based staging, I couldn't set security, right? And let's just pretend for a moment that Joe, who's back from vacation, he loads data for products, right? And then Jack loads data for customers, right? You're going to have to give them access to that. You're going to have to give them access to that table. If Jack is smart enough, Jack can say, hey, I can load some products. I want to load some products, right? And you can't stop him because he can load products if he's smart enough to figure out how to put it in there. So you couldn't do that. Well, now, with entity-based staging, I can say Jack has access to these tables, and Joe has access to these tables, and you don't have to worry about that stuff. Is that such a big deal? Because 99% of the time, who's the same person that's loading all the data? The guys moving the data around in your system is the same guys usually. But that's one of the things that you got with 2008 R2 as compared to 12. And again, when I say 12 now, everything in 14 is the exact same. I think I am running on this VM in 14 because it's cooler, right? If it's a new version, it's got to be cooler. So I'm definitely doing that. So you have a little bit better performance too, again, like I said, with the staging stuff, okay? Master data services are really three roles that are involved in this overall deal, right? Yeah, I got the administrator, and their biggest interface is probably going to be the website, and they'll do some stuff through the Excel add-in. A data steward is going to probably predominantly work out of the Excel add-in and do some stuff on the website. Your developer is going to basically be working in Management Studio and SSDT or whatever it's called, or BIDS or SSDT, right? So those are the tools that we're going to use more around master data services, right? Because we're going to be moving data in and out of tables and views, okay? Does that the hard stuff? Now should we do the easy stuff? Should we do a little demo? Questions? Sure.
Question. How well does it handle really large non-transactional data sets? So, like an example would be,
Is that better?
let's say I have multiple systems that handle property management, and I've got 50,000, 100,000, 10 million properties that I'm trying to connect across systems. How well does it handle?
Well, I mean,
10 million?
the backend system is SQL Server. So, if you want to ask that question from a standpoint of, I think SQL Server can handle it. The Excel add-in, you're going to have to filter because we run into row. I think you can't go past 1 million rows in Excel or something like that. So, nor do I think anyone would want to look at 1 million rows in Excel. So you'd have to filter stuff, but from a standpoint of being able to handle it, I think it can handle it fine, because most of the time, if you're talking large data sets like that, you're not moving those data sets in via Excel. You will move those data sets in via ETL processes that load tables. So, I mean, I think I'd ask that question is whether SQL Server can handle that kind of load, and we know SQL Server can and has. How you'd have to beef up that system depending on that, based on how much you're moving in, how much it changes, that kind of stuff. But I think easily can handle that kind of stuff, because it is, I mean, MDS is a web service and a SQL Server database. So, I don't think that would be that difficult. Did that answer your question or help at all?
I mean, outside of like the Excel restriction, there's not anything else that would necessarily be slower as the volume increases.
I have heard, we'll say I have heard, 2008 had a little bit more performance problems than 12, so I'd probably recommend if you're going to do it, run in 12. I don't have any super specific numbers around what starts getting difficult. I don't think the numbers that you're talking about are that large to where you'd have that problem. Most of the stuff I managed, it was under 100,000. I did some stuff in the oil and gas, and they were managing wells and stuff like that, and you don't have hundreds of thousands of wells. So I can't speak on it. We didn't push total numbers from a standpoint of pushing total numbers, you know, millions upon millions. I can't see that being a huge problem because it's a database within SQL Server, so I don't think that is being an issue.
Yeah, I mean, the specific example is I have a client I work with that they do a lot of, like I was saying, property-based, where they're trying to identify households and then kind of track them across multiple databases over time. And the kind of core of it is about 160 million addresses.
Okay.
And then they get tied together with a couple of other systems that are much lower numbers, like 30 million, 2 million. So I think for them, it would be a huge value add to be able to connect those properties well, you know, from one to the other.
But that can be different kind of, because one thing I don't think, I mean, and this is a debatable on who, tracking change in MDS is not, it can track change as you do it, but it wouldn't be a place where I'd load two different records for what you look like today and what you look like yesterday. If I updated it, sure, it's tracking that change, but I wouldn't put that kind of information within MDS, and that's just a personal preference. MDS is more of what your overall looks like today, right? What other systems can use and what that looks like today. I mean, it's not to say that it can't do that. I've just seen, I don't think that's 100% of a correct implementation of doing it. It doesn't mean that you couldn't do that. But if you track all your baseline properties and then track your change as new things come in to judge that against what it is now, update those to what they are now. But tracking that change would be something I'd probably do in a different system. Because there's a lot of, I mean, there's I don't want to say a lot, but there's overhead involved in what you're tracking and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't think the changes is not necessarily what, I guess what I'm asking about is, like, let's say you were to create some kind of a identifier that you want to use for each household that would then propagate it across the multiple systems. I think that's more of the...
Oh, definitely. Okay. I heard you say change. You made me nervous, sorry.
Threw the wrong word in it.
That's it. Let me start off with the demo. Does that sound, everybody can see that, or do I need to turn the lights back up? Is that the mood? This one set it? No, okay. Is that okay still? Is that better? Okay. Oh man. Okay. So I'm going to start off by showing you the stuff in IE. So I'm in IE here, and see, it is 2014. Isn't that impressive? So here's your interface. In your interface, because I'm signed in as administrator, you can see that I have extra tasks here. Most of the time, your data stewards, if they sign in, they will see these two things. You can easily turn this off. That's just a little bit in the table that says, turn this off, so that you can point your data stewards to it. You can say, hey, if you don't have that add-in, you can add it. Or if IT does that kind of stuff, you can have IT do that kind of stuff. But most of the time, as a data steward, you're just going to see this information. You're going to see the Explorer and the models that you can go to, and you can version these models. Okay? Well, let's start off with, I think I'm going to do administration. Let's just make sure. Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the administration stuff. So the nice part is you can go in and you can set security and stuff to where only certain people can see this, only certain people can do that, and you can. And with MDS, I can have it to where maybe as a data steward, I'm still able to see the integration services pieces or the pieces of data moving in and out. So you can break it up and you can give whatever permissions you want to whichever user you need to. So it's pretty nice from that standpoint, and it tracks everything that you're doing. There is a little, if you go to install, there's a little deal where you can only have one person as the administrator. That person is assigned as the model administrator or as the systems administrator. I'm also there it is. Yeah, this built-in account is the system administrator. But then you can create other accounts and make them model administrators. and those are the people that have access to everything. The reason I bring that up, and the one little pain point, is being a system administrator, you can only have one person in that. So when you add new models, you have to give these other people access to those models. And slight little, but that's how that one is. Okay, you can switch the model administrators or the system administrators around too if you like. The one little thing I'd add, and using this interface because it's a team that was acquired by Microsoft, not Microsoft, there's a little bit different on the way you do stuff. Whenever you click on something, you have to click this pencil icon all the time. It'll burn you all the time because you'll be trying to do something, it won't do anything, but you got to click the pencil icon. And just like when I come in here and I give someone access to a model, as you can see, I can right click here. Is that? You can right click. Let's see if I can right click here and it looks like I can do stuff, right? Golly, that's really bad. And it looks like I can come in here and I can go update. And that looks like that worked, but that didn't do anything because I have to come here and set the pencil, then set the update, right? So it's just a little quirk kind of thing. But as you can see, I can give people access to models, and I can give people access to hierarchy members, all that kind of stuff. I can also give them access to functions so they can see if you're... That's kind of funny because you can't see any of that, can't you? This list is the same list of all those items that you saw on that opening screen. So I can give people access to each one of those items. And that's security in a nutshell real quick. Any questions from there? And you can do it from groups. You can set this for groups. A lot of these people are in here. You can't manage the groups here, but you can assign permissions to groups. And that's definitely best practice that I would recommend. So if you're going to start setting up people, I was screwing around trying admin 1, 2, and 3 and trying some stuff. But I would recommend doing groups. You just can't do groups for that system administrator. Okay? That's the non-sexy part, right? Am I allowed to use that word, sexy? That's the not so cool information. So the other thing let's talk about is let's move up from the stuff to the lame stuff because the light's been out. We don't want to sleep too soon. Version management. The cool part with this is, does anybody work in accounting or works with accounting? They close the books at the end of the year, right? And the cool thing that we can do with version management is I can set versions and I can take a snapshot of that version and set that version. And the nice part about that is, so when I try to go run numbers next year, I can pull from this system what it looked like and what all the accounts look like at that time. And that's what I can do. I can set versions and I can lock them and I can commit them and then they're done. And I can set up specific views, which we'd use for ETL, to pull specific versions. So if I needed to, it's a good way to say, hey, I'm going to lock this version of this accounting, this accounting hierarchy look like this. We're going to move forward and let that change everything. So now we're able to track and we're able to keep those other most of the time that stuff, the only way you can put that stuff back together if you're like, hey, what did it look like in 2013? And you're going to get the report and go back in, you're going to change all the pieces of the report because you don't have that information anymore, right? Because a lot of times we have a snapshot of what it looked like right now.
You mean a version of a particular entity?
Correct. And it's versioned at the model level. And maybe I didn't explain that. So in MDS, you create a model, and within that model, you put entities in there. A model is just a grouping of entities. So, and you can only version at the model level. And as you can see, I create a model from the chart of accounts, but I can put other pieces within that model. But you'll snapshot and version everything within a model. So I can't version at an entity level, I version at a model level. Okay? And then from another tab, I can come in and you can run business rules and commit versions as you set up your models. And you can set business rules associated to those models and those entities. And through here, you have to validate your version. You can do this stuff from a stored procedure too. So if you're moving data in with integration services or just T-SQL or whatever, you can also validate some of this stuff by running T-SQL scripts, or you can come in here and manually update this also. Okay? go
So
back.
you do inference rules and things like that if you have.
Yeah, you can set up some business rules there. I mean, you can set
have
up.
inferred dimensions or something.
I'd say like calculated column ideas. Is that what you kind of mean?
Yeah,
Or-
calculated column or looking up, like if you have codes, look up some other data and partially be able to fill out.
I'd say the inferred member would be something I do in SSIS and I just load it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, or I do it in SSIS and I wouldn't load it until I have it figured out.
Okay.
I mean, it depends on the business scenario whether that inferred member needs to show up on the report, right? My opinion is I would rather not load that into MDS until I know that data. You know, and that's just a personal opinion. It's not something that's steadfast and has to be done that way.
Sure.
But I mean,
I can see that. So if it comes out of the master data service without the values, then
that's how you're going
or
to.
your inferred members.
Right. So you could put that information in there, but that'd be a lot of that kind of stuff. I mean, the business rules that I'd see in here is just basic checking, right?
Okay.
Or if I have a column, I mean, a good example of that, and actually I do it in my demo, is add stuff you don't have in your sources, right? Like let's say demographic, age, or not demographic, yeah, can I say demographic ages? So I'd say, abandoned, exactly. So I'd say, you know, you and I have an age and we bring that information in, it gets loaded in here, and then I can put you in a bucket, right? So I can have a business rule that creates that bucket based off your age, stuff like that. Because there is some information that you would have in MDS that you wouldn't have in your source systems, right? Because that bucketing doesn't exist anywhere. Okay? So that's the boring stuff out of the way. So now we're going to come in here, and what I'm going to do is I want to create a model. I'm going to create a demo model, and then I'm going to build an entity. And what I'm basing this off is a school, right? And I got 100 people, and I want to bring those people in, and I want to manage that stuff now with an MDS. I'm going to show you how hopefully easy it is, and hopefully you can see what I'm doing here, and it's not just a wave of the hand, right? So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to create a model, and I'm going to add a model, and I'm going to call this just demo, right? Okay, and I'll keep all this stuff. It allows you to do hierarchies and stuff within here, or create a entity of the same name as a model. And actually, I'm not going to do that because I don't need to create a model. I'm creating a demo model, and then I'm going to create a customer within my demo model. Sometimes you'll create a chart of accounts and then a chart of accounts entity. So that's basically all a checkbox means. And in doing that, you're able to do hierarchies around that. But I'm just creating a model as a shell. I'm going to save that. Okay, so now I've created my demo model. So now let's go over to Excel, because let's kind of show how we can do this over here, okay? And let me open the right one, then we'll start. And as what I've done here is I've cheated and made a pivot table, and I pulled this data in, right? And I pulled it in from relational. So as what I'm trying to show here is you can pull it in from wherever. You get it to Excel, right? Once you get it to Excel, now it's like, hey, let's put this into MDS. How hard is this? Because as you can see, I've only created a shell, right? There's nothing built currently in MDS for this. And to show you how easy this is, I can come in, and as you see here, there's a tab. Yep, there's a tab that has all the master data services. So when you install master data services add-in, it gives you this ribbon, and this ribbon allows me to connect to master data services servers. So I can hit this connect button and connect to, and as you can see, I already have my server on here. So I can connect to MDS. It will add a tab over here. There we go, tab over here. And I can then pick the model and the version that I want to work with. So I can pick my demo model, right? And it's already started at version 1 for me. And what I can do is I can select all this data. Oh, one thing I wanted to do, I forgot, is, so this is all the data that we have from our source systems, right? But there's this field, I'm going to put target. And this is, I'm just adding this field to the data that didn't exist in my source system, and I pulled it, and I'm like, okay, these are the people that we want to target, right? For marketing and all that kind of stuff. Maybe target is a poor word, sorry. These are the people we want to market to. Okay? So I'm adding this column in there, and we don't even have any data for it. It didn't come out of our systems. But as you can see, I can come over here, and I can create an entity. Can you see that? That's what that button is here. I can create this entity. It'll tell me to go select where I want this information. And I'm going to pick top to the bottom, right? And thanks to this screen resolution. There we go. And I'm going to put it in the demo model. I'm going to call this customer. And I'm going to create a code, or I need a code, and I have customer key, and I have customer name, okay? And I'm going to create an entity, I'm going to hit OK. Here's where the magic happens. Okay, boom, okay? So I've now created that entity in MDS. I thought that was pretty exciting, right? That we can all follow and do that. As you're going to see here, you're going to see some stuff, and you're going to go, okay, that's kind of cool, and maybe I can update it. Like I can, you know, Ruben was married, but, you know, he's not doing too good, so he, you know, goes single. So as you can see, you can update this information, and it gets highlighted, and you can see the things that have changed, and then I'm able to publish. Here we are. I'm able to publish that stuff. So now is what you enable your business steward to do is pull this data down, because I can easily close this down and bring this information back, because now that information is sitting out on the system, and I can make changes and update and push that information back. And when I push that information back, it allows me to, you know, tag it. You know, if there's some information or some reason why I need to do this, I can publish that information. So the cool part here is it's tracking all this stuff, because everyone will go, I can manage master data within my system pretty easily, right? Tables. It's not that hard. I can give people access to it. That's not that difficult. But here's where the nice part is, and this is where I think Master Data Services pays for itself, is it's tracking all that stuff. I can go back and look at the history of these and see the transactions and see who did it, when they did it. I can see that notes are assigned to it, that kind of stuff. Those are the nice pieces. It nicely integrates within here. I can add data to it. If we have time, I'll try to combine some data and do some data matching. Seeing if that works correctly. We'll keep our fingers crossed. But, no, go ahead.
Using this for like type 2 dimensions, how would you?
Well, see, that's where I was going with this question, was
okay.
Change. And that's where I don't think you would track that in here. In the system is what it looks like now. You can see those changes as they come in, but that would be for a source system outside of Master Data Services to actually track the way it looks within. I would think that's what's in your data warehouse system. Master Data Services wouldn't track those. It would track those changes transparently. You know what I mean? It would track those changes underneath the covers. And that's an implementation detail. I wouldn't think you put this stuff in. And the reason I say that is that he worked on those prices. So I'm just saying what he said. But you could do that. If you wanted to put it in there, you
know, I was just wondering here, I guess you put like just an effective date of that change so that
you could.
Because you might make a change like to
well, I mean, all this
married, but it happened 3 months ago, and you might want to make that note of it.
Well, I mean, you can definitely see all that information in here.
Okay.
I wouldn't track. An effective date is what it's. An effective date, in my opinion, in this system is tracked, and that's tracked through version. Version
at the time you put it in.
No, exactly. But I mean, this is what it looks like from a version perspective, right? And I can see when things have changed, and I can easily go figure that stuff out. I don't know if I'd have extra columns in there that I'm actually tracking it from within that system.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah. But that's an implementation detail. That's why when he said that, I was like,
so it's just
I could argue against that all day if I wanted to, right? But that's their vision and I believe my vision too, is that Master Data Services is more, it's keeping what it looks like right now. It's tracked how it got there, and it can keep what it looked like at a specific time through a version if you need that. Because when we create views, and that's the way, to get this data out of this, to get this data now out through integration services, we'll create a view. And we actually don't create a view, we go into the interface and we say click, 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 click is what I want it to do, and I version that view and it goes and creates a view for me, and that's how I get that information out. Does that make sense? Okay. And what are we doing on time? I didn't know. We gotta go till what's?
35.
Okay, so we're still doing good? Okay. So we've put all this information in there, right? And I can easily go, just to show you that it's not a sleight of hand, right? I can come in here. Remember we said most of the data stewards are gonna come in here. I can look at Explorer. I can do my drop down and go to Demo. I can look at Explorer, and here would be the experience I would get from within here, right? And as you can see, all this stuff has been put in. I can manage it. You can see that, was it Ruben? I can, if I'm not mistaken, I can click on Ruben. I can go view transactions, and if you could read that. Oh, you can kind of read that, can't you? You can see that he changed from married to single. This is the person that did it, and this is the date it happened, right? In Colorado. So that's why if you're looking going, 5 o'clock, it's not 5 o'clock, it's 7 o'clock. So that is the date, so you can track all that stuff. All those kind of things are tracked, which is nice, right? Again, we don't have to, if you're doing systems, you don't have to worry about the plumbing stuff anymore, all right? But the question you're going to ask is when you're looking at this Excel sheet is I can come in here and I can put anything I want, right? Married? No, I'm not married. And I can save that information and that's going to go. And you're like, man, that's not what I want. We're able to create domains, or not domains, but we're able to create specific entities that will be domain-based for columns. So I can easily go, hey, let's create a marital status one. I'm going to undo that. And that's how you can undo is you can hit refresh and it'll say, hey, I'm going to throw all the changes you had. It'll go back and get the system or the information from MDS. But I can come in here and I can go get, I hate to type. I can now, remember what we just did, I can do this again. I can create an entity, put it in demo, make a new entity for marital status. I have a code and I have a name, right? And that quick, I can add that one. Okay, so why are we doing that? Well, now I can have this drive that other column to be able to keep my data stewards dropping in the right thing. And I'll show you how easy that is to set up, right? So if I come back here, I can come into marital status, and I can come into, okay, you got to be on the right one. The problem that I was doing is I was on the data that I pulled in and not the master data services page. That's why it wasn't highlighted. So I come into master data services page, now I can create attribute hire, attribute properties. I can come in here and I can say now this is a constrained list, and I can say it comes from the marital status field. Now that quick, I can now say this is set up, and now I only have the ability to change it to what's available in that list. So this is why I say if you have reference data out there, it's not very difficult to push that stuff into MDS and start managing it through there. And the add-in is free, so you don't have to worry about it. From that standpoint, you're going to have to make sure you have an enterprise license. But you can start managing all this stuff within here, and it's super easy to do the reference data. That's why I'm saying if you're taking on an MDS project, you know, there can be a lot involved because I think it's a political and process-driven deal. But putting reference data, if you have an enterprise account and want to start doing reference data, that stuff's easy. And the enterprise has tons and tons and tons of that. That's what I call the low-hanging fruit, right? It's the stuff that you can easily do, you know, get some wins and start understanding how to use more of the product, right? Okay? So the question would be is I can set that up and I can do gender just as easy, but I'm not going to waste time doing that one. But is what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to set up a business rule. Let's see if I'm smart enough to be able to do this. Is I'll set up a business rule that sets partial college. If I key that off, I'm going to target this person, okay? So, and these are where some of the business rules that you could set up. You got to remember, there's plenty of places to do this, right? And again, if your hammer is SQL, you might be doing everything in SQL, but you can do it here, and you can have your business users kind of do this. The interface for it is a little quirky. That's why I always get nervous trying to do it. You got to drag things over to certain places and drop them just in the right spot. But you can set some business rules here. I mean, this could easily be done in an ETL system, right? As the stuff comes in, I key off, because all I was going to do is key off the education level, and if target is partial college, I will, you know, target that user. So there's all kinds of different places where you can do it, but MDS has the ability to be able to put some business rules in there. And some of the other business rules is I can create, basically columns from other stuff. If I had 3 types of keys, I could make one column of keys, concatenate keys, and that kind of stuff, but I'm able to do that. So let's come through here and see if we can, over on this side, I can manage, and I just want to show you a business rule. And I'm just trying to show things. If anybody wonders about something or has a question about something else, you can definitely ask, and we will work on trying to answer that question through a demo. That is. So I'm coming in here and I'm going to business rules. I think it's going. Yep. And we're going to try to put that business rule in and show you that, A, you can put a business rule in that can create data that could need and exist in your system. So what I've done is I've grabbed the demo model, I'm grabbing the customer, and I'm going to all the leaf members, and I'm going to affect all the attributes. You can make business rules that only affect certain groups of attributes and stuff like that, but I'm going to make this so it affects everything. And this is where you come in here, right, and I keep clicking, and I can change the name, but you're like, how do you do this? You've got to click on the pencil, ruler, and T-square, right? I don't know, what's the thing called? Triangle? I have to come in here, edit, select the business rule. There we go. So this one I'm going to double check on my notes because this one gets a little fun. So again, what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to drive our target field based on the education level, right? So I can come in here and I can go, this might not be worth, okay, you can't see all this? Okay. Get value. And this is where you have to drag this stuff across and drop it. If value equals, and I can come down here and set attribute education. I pick that one up, select attribute, drop it over to education. Are we seeing how I'm doing that? I'm going to go steal partial college. I think I already did. If that is partial college, and you have to desave. This is why this is different. If this is equal to, then I'm going to say actions, change value equal to, I'm going to set target equal to yes. Okay. I hit save. Okay, theoretically, I think that's all I needed to do. And as you can see, this is a little quirky. Yeah, or I shouldn't say quirky. It's a little, the way you have to do stuff and drag things over is a little wonky. So that's why if you can do this in other tools and you feel more comfortable with that, then so be it. The nice part is theoretically, if you've done this a couple times, it's not that bad, and it's something you could pass off to the business if you really wanted to. And that's kind of why this is here. We're not wanting to pass off the ETL stuff and the SQL stuff to the business. But the business could set up some rules here, and they're fairly straightforward. It's not, and for the business it might be something that's not that bad, but for you and I, the way this interface works is not the most fun. I mean, I've done it a couple times and I think I got it right, so we're gonna find out real quick. But I should be able to say, if education is equal to partial college, and I don't have that in the way, I can say, then target equals yes. Okay, so these, I think, in my opinion, if we're doing business rules here, I would think this was something business would do. I could easily do this through an ETL process, right? And I think it'd be a lot easier, right? But it just kind of gives you an idea, and I'm just testing myself to see how.
Could you add an alternate rule that says else, have a then equals yes, else no?
I think I can. I'm not sure. I would have to look. I bet I can. But that's like a hard question. You're not supposed to be asking the hard questions. This is where.
Else, yeah.
What's that?
That else is tricky.
Well, the thing that I know that I could do is I could write another rule that says the same thing. If target does not equal college, then no. And so I know I can implement it by writing two rules.
Right.
I don't know. We're going off script here. You're not allowed to ask off script. That's the problem. No, I'm not sure of the exact implementation because this screen scares me because you got to drag stuff across it. And then the fun part is under this high stress situation, right? So we do all this, and you come in here and you think you're done, right? Well, what you have to actually do is you have to activate this. And you see publish business rule. I've had that one catch me once or twice. So you
Just a
want
quick note before you get too far away from it, there's actually a connect case where someone says you really need to add business rules support for both else and case.
Okay.
And Microsoft said, currently we do not have any plans to implement the requested change for MDS.
Yes.
So, no one else in the case did.
I knew that. No, you can't do that. I wasn't sure. And that's why this is business side. If you have to, or if you want to give the business the ability to be able to write some rules, and it is a little quirky, so maybe you don't, but you could give the business the ability to manage some of that stuff within their domain or an easier interface. And that's the reason I show this. This is not something that I haven't implemented for real, many rules here, because it just seems like I could easily do this in ETL, and it seems a lot easier from that standpoint. Okay? So, but theoretically, if I set that all up right and I published it, I should be able to refresh. I'm going to lose my other two changes because I don't care, but those other two should show up. And what are my chances of that getting done right? Didn't do something right on that rule. We're going to assume that worked, but that's what. And I did something wrong on the rule. But in doing that, it's always like you refresh twice, right? The second time works better. I don't think it's going to. Usually it comes back. Dang it. Okay. But that's what that rule would have been able to do. I must have dragged something too quick or did the if then else wrong or set something. But you're able to set up rules if you're smart enough to figure them out. Sorry about that. But that's one thing that you can do. And this is where you can start managing that. But here's where the cool thing is. Let's see if we can really do this match data stuff. So in a situation, unlike your 10 million rows that you're going to get, but let's say we have an extra 10 customers that come in, right? And I want to add 10 more customers. And I think I have another set of customers somewhere. Let's see. The small interface is killing me. Let me hide that, make my life a little easier. I think I had a smaller group of customers. Seconds, sorry. Okay, here we go. So now I have this extra set of data that I want to add, right? New item. Okay, so here's an extra set of people that I need to put into there. Then I need to put into MDS, right? So you could easily just connect, right, from this spreadsheet. I could come over here and I could connect. I could connect to my model, the demo, and I could go to my customers dimension and I could add this information, right? So I can pull that information down. No, I don't want to do that there. Come here, do that. Okay, I can pull that information down. So now I want to combine this information with that, which is no big deal, right? I can just add those rows. It's not a big deal. But how do I know? The nice part is how do I know that I'm not putting something in that I already have in there? Well, through DQS, and there's some quirks with DQS, because for DQS to work with MDS, it has to be sitting in the same instance. So if you install DQS in the same instance as MDS, you can use DQS to do some matching stuff within Excel. Here's kind of cool. So I got that group, I want to add them. So I come over here and I go, I want to combine some data. I'm going to come over here, whoops, and look for it right here, right? Go, okay. And the nice part about it is it picked up a lot of the information from me. It matched on the same stuff. But of course, what I use for code, I use customer key, right? So that one didn't match. And I don't have anything for target, but I can combine these, right? So now I can come in and match. Let's hope I did that in the right order. Match. And I can do DQS data. I can pull in, I'll match on name. And I'm just going to check generic strings, and I'm going to go, let's go exact. And I can put in a weight here. And that weight's going to have to equal up to 100%. Is what this enables you to do. In this demo, I'm just doing one column, and I'm just matching name. But is what I can do is I could match name at like 80%. Like I could say my zip code I trust, or my phone number maybe, if I'm matching for customers. My phone number I trust at about 80%. Address I trust, you know, not exact but similar, because maybe you have 123 Main ST as compared to 123 Main Street, stuff like that. And I'm able to match that information. So I'm able to weight things and how much I want to match. For this, I'm just going to go to 100%. It's got to be at 100%, right? Okay. And I should be able to now go through, talk to DQS, fingers crossed, right? Business rule didn't set me up very well at this point now, did it? So it's going through and it's checking, and is what it should bring back is it should bring back the ones that matched and the ones that didn't. Okay? And if I did this correctly, let's see. I should have, oops. Did I already add those?
Is there any filter on there? Is that something to do?
Not, well, yeah, this is just showing which ones are blanks. Maybe. Am I the right one? Or did I do what I think I did? I'm doing that from the other sheet and it's saying, hold on, there's nothing to match. So let's try that again. Did we see that sleight of hand? I was on the sheet that I didn't pull the data into. So let's try that yet again. Generic string, exact. Sorry about that. 100%. I think I left it at location. That shouldn't matter. But is what? Okay. Be on the right sheet. Yeah, I'm batting 1,000 now. So what it did is, so it went back and I said, I'm checking to see these exact, and this one shows up and it says, look, I have a, I thought there was a confidence. I thought there was a confidence number. It might be hidden. But as you can see, this one is saying, hey, I think these are already there because these match straight up, right? And this is the nice part about DQS is I can see that this is from MDS, and I can see that this one's from my external thing that I'm just trying to load. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, in here I put some stuff that was wrong, that I could see that, hey, I can see that this guy's, it shows, no, it's the same one, but I can pick which one I want, right? I can pick which one I want and update and delete the line that I don't want to add in. So it allows me to now add information and check that information as I start putting it in. And I can say, I thought maybe I was supposed to do like a small percentage. So all those numbers are the same. I thought I put in where some of them were messed up. Bachelor's ID management messed up. But is what I mean is if I see here, they look all the same, which is not helping me out from the standpoint of being able to change something. But I could pick one. I could pick one and take that value from the other one, or from comparing those two, I could grab the relevant data, because now I'm looking at both rows, right? And I see Mike's data, and Mike lives at 123 Main Street in, South Carolina, but I have another address up here. I can look, hey, this is more valid. I can update that information and not put that information in, right? But it gives me the ability here to match and do that kind of stuff where I go, yeah, I have that one. I don't need that one. I can delete that row. I can delete that row, and that row. I don't need those, or update it. And then I'm going to add these rows here. So if I hit publish, now I can put all that information in. Oh, I must have, okay, sorry, my data set. I had, and this, when I try to push those data, when I try to put that data in, you can see that this row already had that key, so I was trying to push that data in twice. And I think that was the one that I had off a smidge. Because I could have swore Ruben was supposed to be in here someplace else. 123.
Very bottom.
Very bottom? Yeah, that's what, yeah, see, I put it in and I made it an exact match, sorry. But the idea was, and that's why he's saying you can't put this one in because it already exists there, and I was going to update Ruben's name. So but those are the kind of things that you can do with DQS, and I think that's pretty powerful because it allows you now to be able to put that data in. Because a lot of times, you have to load this data into a table, do the other table, do the match and see if there's anything. Now I can do this kind of stuff within Excel, and the business user is easily able to put that information in. Okay? So the last piece, I think if I have, is you're going to say, where do we get all this information as the devs, right? And what you're going to have to do to give people access to this information, you're going to have to create views. And you're going to come in here and you're going to, and maybe I'm clicking too fast, sorry. You come into integration management and you're going to click on views and you're going to add a view, and we create a customer, right? And it's coming from the demo model. I'm using version 1. I'm going to use the entity for customer, and I'm going to come over here and grab all the leaf numbers, right? So that's going to allow me to pull everything out that's leaf numbers. And you can manage hierarchies and that kind of information through here. And when you manage a hierarchy that is in this system, you're able to pull that out flat, or you can pull it out as a parent-child if you like. So you can set these views up, and because this isn't a hierarchy, I don't have those options, but you're able to flatten that stuff out depending on how you want to see it. So sometimes, like if I'm not mistaken, some stuff in Excel likes views that are Excel. One of them likes views that are analysis services likes creating some hierarchies where our doesn't like. That's a poor word. You can create some hierarchies that are domain-based that are just from that column, or you can create them parent-child. Domain-based being a little more performant for certain things, but so I can create them however I want. And here, because it's not a hierarchy, it's just an entity, I can create and just look at those leaf numbers, right? And so when I do that, come over here again, save. I now have access to that. Let's show you what that actually did for us, right? And if I come over here to MDS and I come look at views, you can see that I just created this view. Now this is something you'd never ever want to go change, because if you look at it, it's not something you're going to want to mess with, right? See, I don't suggest coming over here and playing with that, because it's putting together all this information from different tables and how it's tracking it. Okay? But that's how you would access this information. So if I was within...
This is like the most performant query.
Super performant.
Maybe I'm just missing something by beating that.
Well, it's... No, that's leading into his question. Now, I mean, because they've made it to where you can model anything, and entities are set up the way they're, each thing is monitored to an entity. Stuff is broken up in a lot of tables, as you can see in that view, right? Yes. And so back to your question on millions of rows, these is how you're pulling stuff out, right? And I don't think from a performance standpoint that's that bad. That's not as performant as select star from table, right? But then there's pieces, because of the way that the table structure has been built, that helps out from the standpoint of managing it. Because if I'm managing information across the entire table and I make a change to an attribute value, how should I track it? Now, do I add another row, all that information, and now track? You know what I'm saying? And that's why they're able to track it at a smaller granularity. Okay? Good question. Okay, and let's open up. So we're in Management Studio, right? And you can see I can load data into, this is an example of loading data, assuming, I should be able to get to that. Oh, wrong one, sorry.
I think the view was just custom.
Oh, yeah. Except this should be an extra table. What I was trying to do with this one is load data in. I was inserting stuff in, but did I delete that table? I mean, that's a good eye, because I did do customer, and I think I messed up the last time I did it into just customers. I have this demo. I have a table over here, and it should be should have had an extra table with extra data. That's what I'm actually looking for, right? That's just DBO.
Yes, the demo.
What's that?
Oil DB correction.
Oh, I didn't. Demo. Okay. Preview. Okay. What I was going to show here, we can get this to work. 2 seconds, sorry. We're going to come over here. Select top 100 rows. We're going to steal that, right? It shouldn't have been this hard. But I'm going to come back over here. Is it not let me? NDS demo. Preview. There we go. Look at that. Now I got a course column I don't want. Delete on that. There we go. Okay. So this is one way to put this information back in, and I'm only putting some pieces in because I can do customer key and marital status. We won't worry about that one. Because what I want to show here is, okay, so this is how you can load. I showed you how you can put some data in through Excel, right? And we updated some data through Excel. This is how, if you're an ETL developer and you have it out of a database system, I can easily load that information in via integration services, right? And if I run this, dun, 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 I just inserted 20 rows in. Now I come back into my MDS system, I should be able to see those 20 rows, except I don't think I processed it. So you got to come into integration management, and you should see. Did I put it in demo? You should see imported data and not go. This is batting 1,000 right now, huh? They go straight. Okay. Those rows should have came in. Is what they do is they go into those staging tables. In the staging table, it would show up, and I can insert one row. I have another way to do it. Let's do this one. Open. Load customer. Okay. Load this leaf. Execute. One row is inserted in. And this is, again, you can do it however you want to load it in. You can load it in through a SQL statement. I'm just going into the customer leaf table, going into the stage table, and I'm loading this information. I'm calling it the new demo load, and I'm adding Joseph the third, right? Now, if I come over here, I should see that show up. Let's try this one more time. Integration management, import data, new demo load. There we go. This guy's in here. You're gonna hit start batch, and again, you can programmatically kick this off. There's SQL statements that you can do, and it'll start up and it'll be queued to run. It takes a second for that row to go in, but this is how you can start getting that data in. I must have messed something up in that ETL package, but that's the other way. I can also push stuff in via that ETL package. Same kind of idea. After you load it, then you probably want to go in and in that package, kick off the store procedure that says validate and all that kind of stuff, so that you don't have to come back here and do this, okay? But then you should be able to see that, and through the great refresh, I can hit there and I can see that that's completed, and now when I come out to my database and I hit refresh, I should grab, and see, I guess those rows did go through, and I guess my target information did now work.
Welcome.
This is awesome. This is trying to, see, you guys are all thinking I'm lying. So, for some reason it wasn't refreshing, but you can see those are the rows that just inserted, and these were the rows, that was the one row that I put in, and these were the other rows, unless, I think I wrote that package. Maybe I wrote that package and I put that SQL statement. Did I put the SQL statement in there? I think more than what I thought I even did. truncate? No, I just truncated it. Pull back. But looks like it went, and it looks like those rows actually showed up, because you can see that those are now new rows when I refreshed, right? And I think that's kind of the cool part of this, right? So, a little quirky. So you can see that those rows now have gone in. And what I was trying to show you there is I was trying to show you there's multiple ways to get the data in, right? I can get the data in via just giving people access to put that data through Excel, create entities, whatever I want to do. If you want to give your business that much power to, hey, they can do that stuff, I can easily put it into T-SQL scripts. I can easily put it in through SSIS. And then the question would be is how do you get that stuff out? And that's where I was being really dangerous to try to write something in Vimble real quick to where, let's see if I can create these packages real quick. Generate SSIS packages, because we've got to throw some of that in, right? And Andy's going to explain all the Vimble stuff. Let's see if I... Everything's slow tonight, or is that just me? Hey, look at that. So, and we're all kind of aware of Vimble? No, yes, maybe? The guys in the back have done it justice and talked all about it. So I was able to, and we'll let Andy take the thunder next time. I was able to create a statement that's going to create these basic packages for me in Vimble. And as you can see, they showed up here. And I'm able to move that data across, do a row count, and let's just come in here and preview. Anything else is not going to be as exciting. And as you can see, that information comes back. Is what you get here is a lot of version. You get version names and all this kind of extra information if you want. Okay, but this is how you would then load this or put this stuff into more of your database type system. But you could easily do it through SSIS packages. Okay, that's the majority of it. Any other questions? Is that exciting? No? Turn on the lights so you can still sleep. No questions? You can set this up. I've been in some situations where we set it up like HA type stuff, but you can move off, and that's where I was getting at when I was talking about the 2012 versus 2008 R2. If you're still a shop that's running R2 and you don't have the ability to say, hey, let's run 12, it's an easy to say, hey, can we run one instance that we're running 12, no databases on it, we're really just going to set up IIS on it, so it's really not, you're really not running 2012 in your enterprise. And when you do that install, you install the bits on this machine and then point back to a 2008 R2 database. So there are different ways that you can do it that way. You can also set it up under, they've got some papers out there, and I actually was at a client where we set it up in an HA environment. We did an always on availability group underneath so that it could move. But again, if I create an always on availability group across two databases, what is my single point of failure still? That web interface, right? So we actually put that web interface behind the load balancer so that we were able to have that web interface HA also. And people might look at us like we were crazy to do that because that's a lot of money to they put an HA solution for an MDM product, but the reason that we did that is because we had reporting services in that same type of environment. Reporting services was using the same server, always on availability groups, right? So we wrapped up the reports and the MDS databases in the same availability group so they would fail over together because reporting services did need to be an HA environment. And what do I need for reporting services to make it HA? We had the web pieces, right? Because it was a distributed install. We put that on those two machines. So really, is what it enabled us to do is we put the MDS pieces on too. I mean, most of the time you're not going to get a call at 2 o'clock in the morning if MDS goes down. That's not the 2 o'clock in the morning call, at least not the web interface part. But it was a cool use of marrying technologies together to where we use the resources from another install and got HA for MDS too. And it just kind of sounds cool, right? HA MDS. But that's the sexiness of MDS as much as I can think of right now. With my demo going. I get validated at the end, right? So, any questions?
Yeah, so how end user adoption and things like that, really getting people to use them I know there's cultural changes that need to
But and that's why I like the reference. I mean, I think the adoption's pretty easy. The biggest sticking point for adoption is always the enterprise CAL, right? It's the people that say, "Oh, I want to do this. I want to install it." And there was a guy on the web saying, "This didn't let me install." And I think because, of course, because I'm a developer, and the only edition I've ever tried to install is Dev, right? Is the developer edition, because I install the stuff on my machines, and then I get with the important people that do the installs on the big things, and they have all the licenses. Is more the standard. You know, they'll have a standard CAL and they'll be like, I can't install this. But adoptions, I mean, if you have the enterprise CAL, I think it's a great thing. Adoption hasn't been something that's hard because you can stand it up and use it as little or as much as you want. And everybody has reference data in Excel. And if you have reference data in Excel, you should put it in a system that's managed, right? Because that's crazy. I mean, if somebody's machine goes down, boom. You know, you don't have that reference data anymore, that kind of stuff. I mean, a lot of people we've moved all that stuff to SharePoint list, right? And then we have to have adapters for SharePoint list, right? And that's, you know, that's not that bad. There's an adapter for SharePoint list, suck it out. Through SSIS, it isn't that bad. But I think, you know, it's not managed, excuse me, it is managed in SharePoint. You got versioning, I can turn versioning on, right? And I can set security up. So, you know, there's some pieces there, but the interface in through Excel, I think, is just so much better with MDS and the pieces around it, I think. So adoption's been pretty good, I think, if that answers that question.
One way we handle that where I work is through business analysts. We have the business user contact the business analyst when they anticipate a change or they see something in the queue that is uncategorized and that they know needs to be grouped up. And so the business analyst is actually the administrator of the entity, and then she schedules the update to the queue through us.
Is that to deal with the CAL issue or the learning curve on the MVS interface or above?
We're taking baby steps as far as introducing this to the business users. We just don't think that they're ready, nor do we actually have the time to train them and babysit them. So we have a couple of business analysts who are very comfortable with technology, and we're relying on them for that.
But the nice part about it is, 9 times out of 10, when I go to the accounting department, the accounting people can show me up and down with Excel. So that's why when I say, here's Excel, they're like, oh, you mean I can do this and this and put a VLOOKUP over here? And I'm like, sure, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't suggest, when you pull that data down, I've heard people trying, you pull that data down and then, oh, I want to insert this. I don't know if I'd go about doing that. I would not mess with the sheet that you're pulling it down, except for putting data into that sheet. I wouldn't try to add columns and all that kind of stuff, because I think it can freak it out. There's another product out there. There's a group of guys from Strateger that came to Microsoft, had fun, and then decided to, you know, continue on the venture. We've heard that once or twice in life, but continue on the venture, and they started up their own company. It's called Prophecy. I think I have it. Prophecy. They make an MDS interface too. They also have written a web interface over top of their web interface that they think is a lot easier to use.
Is that Maestro?
Yep.
Is it the same thing?
Database Maestro, yeah.
We looked at it, and it would have been awesome for business users. It just wasn't in our budget.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great product for sure, but there's definitely some cost to it because it manages it through its own interface. Now you're not to Excel. Because the problem and what they talk about is, yeah, if you move columns over, you sort of, like if you cut and paste and moved all those columns over and you didn't pay attention and you synced it back up, you just moved all that data over. So you just got to be careful when you're in Excel. And they have, oh, and the one piece I didn't is, I think I showed hierarchies, but you can manage hierarchies. That's the only piece you can't manage them from within Excel. You have to go to the interface to manage the hierarchies and move stuff around. You can drag and drop and move things around. You can give people just permission to look, or you get people to move and you can drag those. There's 2 different hierarchies that they make, and it's domain-based and entity-based. One of them's a parent-child, and then one of them's a hierarchy based on columns, right? When a parent-child hierarchy, I can move things around. And a great example of what we use for parent-child is accounting, right? I'm able to move this account out up into this account. In a domain-based, that'd be like states. You know, countries, states, cities. It doesn't make sense for me to move a city into the state column, right? So you can't move states. You can't move in a domain-based. You can't move the items outside of the domain that it's in. Okay? Any other questions? But I mean, with Excel, I think it's an easy win. That's why I think adoption's pretty easy if you find, I mean, it's the budget thing. Because if you're not Enterprise Cal, it gets expensive. And I had somebody asking that question, and I'm not sure on licensing because I'm not a licensing guy. I wonder what it would cost is if you, the cheapest route I was thinking is if you wanted to do it, you buy an Enterprise Cal and you put it on a very low processor box, right? Because if I'm not mistaken, 12 is per core now. For 2008, R2 wasn't. So if you have a license sitting on 2008 R2 and it was like a 4-core 4-way, back in 2008 R2 you paid for 4 licenses, and when you upgrade to 12, you're going to go to 4 times 4 is what, 16? You're going to go 16 licenses, or you're going to have to do 16, so there's a cost there. So that's where there's a guy out our way, Glenn Berry, if you've heard of that guy. He's a big hardware guy, and I'm not a big hardware guy, but he knows a lot about hardware. And if you're upgrading to 12, it might really pay to look at the hardware you're going to upgrade to, because if buying a new box is 30 grand, and buying the same licenses to license the box that you're on, that you have to go for the 16 instead of buying the two ways. Now you have 4 processors and go back to that, but you have more processing power than you had on another box. It might be beneficial to do that. So that might be something I'd suggest, but I don't. Talk to your hardware guy. Glenn's the guy who knows that stuff. Glenn Berry from SQL Skills. He knows all that hardware stuff. I stayed in Holiday Inn Express last night, so I'm acting like I know, but I don't know hardware to save my life. So, any other questions? Yes, no, maybe? We good? Now do I get some pizza? Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.